LJ McCrae is the Miami Hurricanes' top remaining uncommitted recruiting target, and he's announcing this Saturday. Where do the Canes stand?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. I'm Alex Donno, your host, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Thank you so much to the everydayers for sticking with us every single day of the week. Let's talk some recruiting on this episode. Who better to bring in than the recruiting overlord in these parts, our good friend Brian Smith. Brian, who's also my colleague at allhurricanes.com. We'll talk about what happened this past Saturday as well, but how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. It's Monday, like you said, but in our world, every day is the same. I talk football 7 days a week, so that I sometimes don't know what day of the week it is.
I have the same problem. And by the way, every time Brian joins us, he's brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Brian, I remember going way back to probably early in the summer is when I was told that the Miami Hurricanes coaching staff rates LJ McCrae a lot higher than the recruiting services did at the time. And they actually thought he had more potential than even any of the other defensive tackle targets like the Justin Scotts and the David Stones of the world, that, Miami really had LJ rated highly. And now all of a sudden, the recruiting services are starting to reflect that. The standout defensive lineman from Mainland High School in Daytona Beach has gotten a big bump and an upgrade from 24/7 Sports. He's moved up from a 4-star to a 5-star, and he's now the 6th-rated player, not at his position, but in the entire class of 2024. LJ McCrae, 6th-rated player in the entire class. He's going to be announcing between 5 schools this Saturday, Miami, Georgia, Florida, Florida State, and Auburn are the finalists. If you go by the On3 tracker, they still have Florida as the favorites. They're certainly up there. I have seen some smoke for Georgia, and I've seen some smoke for the past several months for Miami. Where do you think things stand with LJ?
I just hope that it's a one and done, because everything that I have gleaned from speaking with him directly to other people, there is no one consensus. It's one of the more difficult things. If I was to guess, I'd say Florida, but I've missed like on the last 5. Don't go with what I say. I thought Aiden Breland was going to Georgia. He picked Oregon the other day. These kids are keeping it close to the vest, the 5-star kids. It's hard, and nobody's going to get anything out of him now. He wanted to announce right after his birthday. He told me that when I interviewed him a few weeks ago, and he's done that. He's been very consistent. I'll give LJ credit, but he was at Miami for the A&M game. He walked right in front of me. In fact, that is a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean, Miami's recruited him as hard as any player in the country. I know that from what's going on with their staff. That, like you said, is the guy that they thought was just tremendous upside, and he's raw, but man, is he an athlete. So I get it. And here's the thing. Like if Florida, Georgia, Miami, Florida State want a kid, that Auburn's after, there's really not much doubt he can play. And this is really the first year he's played D-line. That's why the Miami coaches thought long-term he'd played. This is so bizarre. He'd played tight end for whatever reason for the majority of his high school career and just kind of dabbled with D-line. Now he's kind of focused on D, and it changed his recruiting ranking. So yeah, it's a fascinating recruitment.
I look at what happens if he doesn't commit to Miami. Obviously, I hope he does. Miami's got Daylen Russell in the class, Artavious Jones in the class, and it's easy to forget about Jamil Burroughs, who transferred from Alabama. He's sitting out the year. He's a former very high-rated recruit and a monster of a space eater. So it's going to feel like he's a new recruit next year when he debuts in Miami. So do you feel like, are they going to be criminally weak or thin at the defensive tackle position next year? Or do you think even if they don't land a guy like McCrae that they could be all right?
Well, that's a two-parter. Number one, you got to continue to look at the portal. Burroughs, I mean, it's hard to get guys with that kind of girth.
Yeah.
I'd seen him play in high school, met him, etc. That's a unique player. If they can get the max out of him, he can be a starter and be your one tech. I don't know, but that's not a kid you just take for the heck of it. I mean, you're going to take a guy like that because he's got a chance. And the other thing is, some of these young guys have got to start really making some noise. The freshmen, redshirt freshmen, etc. We won't know enough until spring ball is over. But I mean, the D-line coaching, I'm not worried about. They got two excellent coaches there. I think it'll kind of work itself out. And I wouldn't be surprised if Artavious played either. You can't teach 310.
Yeah.
And I've seen him live. That way he moves is not normal. So with, Horton, etc., they've got enough bodies next year adding Burroughs. But getting a guy like this, McCrae, who can play all kinds of things. I mean, he's literally at 275 or so playing outside linebacker this year in high school. It's ridiculous.
Right.
He'll take some time. He probably needs to redshirt because this is a guy that's completely changed his trajectory in terms of position. But Miami's D-tackle depth is headed in the right direction. It's just a matter of which one or ones really step forward.
Well, and another one, whether he plays end or tackle, to think about is Armondo Blount, because I think there still is a chance he could decide to reclassify for 2024. Do you feel like if Armondo were to do that, could he be a guy who plays year one, or is that going to be more of a redshirt project?
I mean, it's never something that I like to see kids move up, especially if they're linemen, but he's a rare dude. He's 250 or so right now. I think he can play inside in special situations, but first and 10 run stopper, he is not. That's not his mentality, and he's not big enough. I've heard there's an extremely good chance that he'll change to the 24 class when he enrolls, probably be next summer, though. It's hard to get all those credits, and he's an elite student, but it's hard to get all those credits in time, get into Miami, etc. That's a big, big jump. I think he would be a situational pass rusher, and they'd play him at strong side end. Him and Bain or whichever players, you put him with anybody, you're good. But like him and Bain, I'm not worried about Miami's defensive end situation. You still have Nigel Leak, etc. too, so they're good there.
We still have a lot to get to on this episode of Locked On Canes, including got to talk about Zaquan Patterson, about the season he's having at Chaminade, because Zaquan is now Miami's highest rated recruit. He's gotten a big bump in the rankings. We've got to talk about turnovers, what has plagued Miami these last couple of games, and we've got to talk about the cornerback position, because obviously we saw Miami's defensive backfield give up some big plays against UNC. I want to talk about that position, present and future, what Miami has in the pipeline there in recruiting. Brian Smith, our recruiting overlord, is with us. You know what we like to say? We are only getting started on this Monday episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, if you're looking for last-minute tickets and deals, the best deals, you've got to check out Game Time. I'm telling you, buying last-minute tickets to your favorite sporting event, concert, comedy show, it doesn't have to be a frustrating experience. It never is at Game Time, guys. You get these last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. It is so easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. When I sign on at Game Time, I'm always amazed at how just right there on my screen, they've got all the events you're looking for in South Florida or wherever it is you live. And you can see the view from the seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And I'll tell you guys, the best thing about Game Time is they're so confident in their service and their prices. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Oh, we are also brought to you by Prize Picks. Guys, Prize Picks, I've never had this much fun watching football before. It is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and then place your entry. quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Guys, this is completely legal in Florida, by the way. It's so easy to deposit, to withdraw. And with the Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Brian Smith is with us, recruiting expert on the Locked On Network and my colleague at allhurricanes.com. So, Brian, I'd love to hear about how Zaquan Patterson has been doing at Chaminade this year because he's gotten himself a big bump. The still a 4-star but highly rated 4-star safety is now the top-ranked recruit in Miami's class of 2024. Is he living up to that billing so far this year?
I think Zaquan's actually improved his actual coverage skills. I've known him for a while, and he's a guy that is very aggressive, plays downhill, and he's very physical. He'll definitely be a thumper for the Hurricanes. But when you can cover like he does, and he's give or take 200 pounds, maybe 198, somewhere around that range, so he's going to be college ready with size. That was the final hurdle. You just got to keep learning because that's hard. They know where they're going and the DBs don't. So it's all about technique. He's gotten better at that. He's gotten some big picks. He's been a guy that's been able to take it back to the house. All the things you would look for this season, he's done. Watching his film. If you haven't, search out Zaquan Patterson's film on Huddle. It's legit. And he's just a guy that I think can come in and play in different roles for Miami. Nickel, he could be a safety, whatever the case may be. And as most probably expect, Kim and probably James as well will leave after this year. So there's an opportunity for multiple guys, Zaquan included, to play in 2024. So really good news for him, and he deserves a bump. Very, very good football player.
Now, when Miami just lost to North Carolina the other day, I know anybody watching this probably knows that already, 41-31. My chief complaint and takeaway from that game were the turnovers. Miami has committed 9 of those in the last 2 games, 4 turnovers. North Carolina did not turn the football over in that game. It's hard to win a game when you lose the turnover margin -4. But we've also gotten a lot of messages, Brian, and complaints about Miami's defensive backfield. Yes, they did give up some big passing plays, specifically to Tez Walker, who I know folks haven't seen him a whole lot because it was only his second game in the Power 5, but he's really good. And yeah, he did. He beat Jaden Davis, and I thought maybe Miami could have given more safety help in some of those situations. But before we talk about the future of Miami's defensive backfield, how do you feel about the cornerback position right now at Miami?
It's kind of unique, and I questioned this before. I don't doubt that they're physical. Like Jaden, as you mentioned, that is a physical football player.
Great
in
tackler.
The box area. Yeah, for a corner, he tackles like a linebacker. He does not jack around, but he's not the biggest guy in the world. And Tez is like 6'2.5", and he's like 4'3" speed. Like one-on-one, he's going to win 90% of the time, regardless of who's in front of him. That's unfortunate. They're not going to play another Tez Walker of that speed and size. Keon, that coming up at Florida State in a few weeks, will be in the realm, but Tez is probably the fastest guy they'll face. The point is still the same. Does Miami have pure man-to-man coverage skills that give you thoughts that this can be a top 10 team? Right now, I don't think so. But they've got guys on the roster, the Brown brothers, et cetera, that you're like, okay, Jadais, we heard a lot about him in fall camp. He hasn't done anything. I don't know what the problem or problems could be, but and it's not like Mario is going to hand those out at his Monday press conference. But at the same time, they got to figure something out because teams are just going to start throwing deep. It's going to happen. And Clemson's got a really fast freshman. I guarantee you they're going to run some deep routes. Like he can fly. I forget the kid's name, but they're going to do it. It's on film now. You can get over the top of the Canes. So they better figure out something. And if they don't, this could be another transfer portal situation in the offseason that Miami has to go to.
Yeah, and Davonte Brown is someone because you used to cover UCF and you covered him there. I'm just surprised he hasn't made more of an impact? I think is he not
I
that
don't know.
fast? Because that's one of the things that I suspect is that they don't trust his speed. I don't know what else it could be.
He's certainly long enough. He's 6'1",
Yeah.
6'2". The length in the arm. I mean, I've stood next to him. He's got the length. I saw a couple of times, I think it was the A&M game where in zone, he didn't do the things they wanted. They were pointing out things after plays, talking to him when he was still on the field. But it's like at some point, he's a senior in college.
Yeah.
It's on him. If they're not going to play just straight man with him or whatever, they got to do something. But he's too talented not to play. There's something goofy here because I like Jaden, but he's not tall enough to go against Tez Walker. He's not. And they got to find something else, or some of these big-bodied receivers are going to eat them up. So Clemson doesn't have a great passing game, and I'm being kind. I mean, they scored, 17 points against Wake Forest?
Yeah.
They threw for like 150 yards or something. Maybe Wake had a really good game plan, but I'm not picking on Wake. Clemson should be able to score 30 against Wake every single time. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And they got Will Shipley and Phil Moffitt in the back there. They got two good running backs. They didn't do a ton in that game either. So Miami should be able to do good things against Clemson, but I'm worried about the individual one or two plays that can flip the game because, again, I know it's Tez Walker, and he's an NFL player. That guy has a chance to be a number one at the NFL level. No debating it. But Miami's cornerback play has to be better in just sheer cover. I'm not saying tackling, not to get screened. Over the top, it's got to get better.
What about the future of the cornerback room? Obviously, they have some young guys on the roster. You mentioned Damari Brown,
That's right.
Jadais Richard, Robert Stafford, who I'm sure is redshirting this year. And, you got Frederic and Mac committed in the class of 2024. I'd really like to see Miami land another class of 2024. I know but they've been trying to flip Ellis Robinson, who knows if that could actually happen or will happen. But how do you feel about the future at that position?
They probably just need to continue to take 2 to 3 guys a year that they like. Frederic is really unique to me because when he was at Deerfield before he transferred over, he was a kid that played primarily receiver. So in a sense, kind of like LJ McCray, he's learning a new craft, but he's got the length and speed that you're looking for. Those are the kinds of stories that Miami has been made famous. Kids that are just kind of raw South Florida guys that are track kids. Romanis fits that. And they also, I thought Damari would play a little bit more, but they're going, this ACC schedule is pretty loaded with good receivers. This week is goofy because it's not a typical Clemson group. It's not. But how much do you put a freshman on the field when you've lost your last 2 games? I get it. But I want to see him, and I know they're probably not going to do this. I want to see him straight up man-to-man coverage, which probably will not happen. But at some point, they got to play some of these guys and find out. Jaden's not going to be there next year, etc. They have to play some of these guys. And again, Brown's older brother's got to play more. Jadais got to play more. They've got to get more size and length on the field, or the future's not going to work out either.
When we come back, I want to get Brian's view on the big issues against North Carolina this past weekend and how fixable this stuff is. So you want to keep it locked right here, my friends, to Locked On Canes. Time now for our game changer of the week. I got to give it to Ruben Bain. Guys, Ruben Hurricane Bain looks like one of the better defensive linemen in the entire country. He's a true freshman, was so disruptive. I mean, Miami had the momentum in the first half against UNC, up 17-14. So much of that was on Bain's pressure and on his sacks. Guys, much like Ruben Hurricane Bain, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Athletic Brewing Company, they make brews that are great tasting and award-winning. They beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beers, including what we all love, like IPAs, golden, sours, and more. They're constantly releasing limited edition experimental styles to add to their variety. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. And first-time customers, use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout at athleticbrewing.com to get 15% off. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. And for the everydayers, you want to take that everydayer experience to the next level, sign up to become a Locked On Canes insider. We'll be giving you guys recruiting scoops throughout the week. We'll be tracking LJ McCray before his Saturday announcement. We give you guys breaking news. I'm going to be at Mario Cristobal's press conference today, so we'll give you updates on that. So check us out. Click the link in the show description below to try it free for 14 days. Become a Locked On Canes insider. If you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Brian Smith is with us. And, Brian, first of all, I know that Miami fans, it's really easy to say, well, hey, they lost the North Carolina game because of what happened in the Georgia Tech game. Mario Cristobal screwed up, and that carried over. I think that would be an easy cop-out to say that, hey, this is a hangover from what Cristobal did the week prior. I don't think it was the hangover. I just think that this team, and listen, people can blame it on coaching if they want to. It's just not because of that specific instance of coaching. How are you supposed to win these games when you turn it over 9 times over 2 games? That's not a recipe for victory.
Let's start with Tyler Van Dyke. He's not seeing the field the way he should. The Georgia Tech game, they knew, and I don't know how you do this, you're guessing, but they changed coordinators. They fired one guy, kept him on the staff, moved him to safeties, moved another guy to court. It's really, really unusual. So, I mean, Dawson was talking about at his press conference for the Tech game. Hey, we know there's going to be some different stuff. We just got to adjust to it. Well, they didn't.
Nope.
And specifically Van Dyke, because he kept throwing weight down the middle, which is a cardinal sin anyway. Yeah. That has nothing to do with Mario. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And I've been a big Tyler supporter, but that was an awful performance. This game, he had the one pick, but like the fumble, I mean, the other guy, and this is the guy I know better than anybody on the team, Matt Lee. I trust him over anybody on the team, straight up. Yep. That was a horrendous snap.
Yeah.
I mean, could he, could Tyler have gotten it? Sure. But I mean, that would have been a hell of a catch. And it's just unusual of all players, like the guy that you expect to make the play didn't. And to go back to the Tech game, the second guy I trust most on the team would be Cam Kinchins, who got beat on the final play. I mean, these are just, what are the odds that it's Lee and Kinchins having big moments like that? I mean, 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not coaching. It's not.
Right.
It's not. It's just the way it is. Sometimes guys screw up. Cam Kinchins will probably never have a worse play in his college career.
Nope.
I don't know how he could. And he'd tell you the same. He's a very straight up guy. He's a great dude. They have to figure out some things on the field, and everybody likes when their teams lose at any level. It's the coach. It's the coach. The reason they say that, it's a hell of a lot easier to get rid of the coach than it is the players. You can't.
Yeah, true.
Sometimes your players just aren't maximizing. And let's also give in the second game in particular, Carolina credit. They beat the bejesus out of Drake May. They were hammering him.
Yeah.
And in the second half, he still made those throws. That's why he's a top 5 pick. Give that man credit. He's a special football player. And even on the one like he beat Jaden Artez did, that was a perfect money ball, but it's still incomplete. It just, sometimes you got to tip your cap.
Yeah.
But that leads into this right here, man. They have to come out with their hair on fire against Clemson. I'm curious to what you think about that personally. But
and listen, and they got to do it for you got to finish. You got to do it for 60 minutes because listen, I outside of Miami did make some brutal mistakes in the first half against Carolina. I mean, when you fumble it at the goal line, it's hard to recover from that. When your defensive coordinator gets a 15-yard penalty that basically costs you 7 points, that happened in the first half, and yet Miami, they did, it's specifically on defense, they played with their hair on fire in that first half, but they couldn't sustain it for 60 minutes, and I can kind of understand that because, listen, I sympathize a bit with the defense when the offense is given short fields and turning it over every time they get out there. Eventually, your defense is going to break. You can't expect your defense to play like they were for 60 minutes when the offense is handing short fields to the opponent.
Turnovers and poor defensive performance go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's been that way at every level since the dawn of football. You cannot expect guys who are chasing, which is what defense is, and burning more calories than the offense, to give up a drive, even if they punched them in the mouth and they got a 3 and out. Your team gets a 3 and out too. They're right back on the field. You do those kinds of things, and then you add in the 2 turnovers in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Alex, I mean, you watch more Miami football than anybody I know. Name a worse quarter in a quality game, not against somebody they might have been not really into, that Miami's had in the last 5 years when they could have won the game.
That's tough.
I mean, they were up at halftime. That's the worst quarter that, and I know that like the Guidry getting the penalties goofy. I get that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, a lot of it's just self-inflicted, man. I mean, I love Henry Parrish, but he was my pick for player of the game. Whoops, I missed on that one. I mean, he fumbled at the goal line, and he's a heck of a running back. He's number 6 in the ACC in rushing with 452 yards. He's really good. You can't fumble there. You know, those are the kinds of plays that change the game. And Miami should have been up, what, Alex? 14 at half, something like that?
Yeah, they should have been, at least.
Yeah. I mean, think about the other play, and I brought this up in the article I wrote on Sunday. Miami gets the sack, and in particular, the guy that you just mentioned, Bain, the ball's out at the goal line. Not only does Miami not get a touchdown or get the ball, UNC gets it and moved it. I mean, it's just like they could not get out of the way.
They only lost 1 yard on that play.
And I'm like, as soon as he hit it, I thought, this is a touchdown. This is the game-changing play.
Same. Yeah.
The odds of that are like 1 in 100. It never goes the offense's way in that situation. And Miami didn't capitalize.
Well, it certainly gives us more to talk about throughout the week. Guys, we are going to have, not only will we have a second episode today, because I wanted to give our fans, you know, not only a chance to vent, because not all of you are venting. Like, not everyone is like enraged. Like, some people do see the big picture still. But we're going to do another episode today where I read a ton of questions and comments from you guys. You can always get those to me if you join our Locked On Insiders text group. Click the link in the show description below to try it free for 14 days. So not only will we have another full episode today, I am going to post the video from the coaches. I'm going to be on my way shortly to see Mario Cristobal, Lance Guidry, Shannon Dawson, and we'll put everything they have to say is going to be on our YouTube channel today. Brian Smith, huge job. Thank you so much. As always, remember, Brian is always brought to us by LinkedIn Jobs, linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege if you want to post your job for free. Brian, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Same to you, my friend. Take care.
We will talk to everyone next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.